Good evening. I will now call the Board of Trustees of New York Township to order. Deputy Clerk Pearson, please read the roll.
Trustee Casal McNally. Here. Trustee Robbins.
Here.
Trustee Moser.
Here.
Trustee Rubin.
Here.
Supervisor Schnitzer Eisenberg.
Here. We have quorum for business. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
You decided to start a new folder.
No, exactly. Supervisor's report. It's been an eventful month. We renewed our toy membership, Township Officials of Illinois. So please make use of the resources available to you. They now have recordings of some of their seminars. If you missed them, on their website. Always great. And have the presentations available as well. I know I like to go back right before budget, watch the budget one, like all the exciting things about Robert's Rules of Order, they're all available. In addition, the annual Township Officials Conference is in November. I will channel Ellen Goldberg and say you should all go. He's always very excited about the Springfield opportunities for education. I will not be available to go to a work conflict, but do let us know if you're interested in bringing back best practices to our township.
Do you know when it is?
Yes.
Specifically?
Yes, the week of November 11th, I believe.
It always is.
Yeah. And make sure you are all getting your township perspective magazine. Sorry, November 13, 14, 15.
And it's in Springfield?
It is. And you can leave notes for your representatives because they'll be back in session the next day. So, but they will not be there. Highly recommend that if you are intending to go to register soon because the hotel will fill up. We had that problem with the last Springfield conference. I offered to have a sleepover with Niles. Anyway. As you saw in Larisha's report, the staff has all done their cyber training to avoid any kind of issues here in New York Township related to spyware, phishing, things like that. You are very much encouraged to complete yours as well if you have not done so. You would have gotten a weird a training email from HTML. That is a real thing. Please do it. And they probably sent you a lot of reminders.
Yeah.
And it's actually not bad. Some of them are kind of funny. The modules. I gave credit. We now have a new permanent donation spot for food pantry donations at the grants, so thank you to them. This past Friday, we had a meeting with Corporation Counsel Jeff Stein and Chief of Police Murphy from Wilmette regarding peer jury. I'll leave the peer jury discussion to Elliot. But related to adult diversion, we did start a discussion about conflict resolution as a potential additional service that the township could provide. We were talking about the use of municipal violations amongst neighbors in particular, offensively, defensively, and how we could provide a neutral here in the township to try to resolve those kinds of neighborly disputes. So I'm starting the process of reaching out to nonprofits to try to see if we can create a partnership there. So if anyone has contacts at some of the mediation organizations, that would be helpful. All right. The sustainability coordinator that we talked about with the intergovernmental committee should be on board in January, February. So that's something to keep in mind. And that will be hired directly by Wilmette. And then we will be able to use our hours. As you saw in Larisha's report, we did have to get an extension on the audit. There's just too many documents that were hidden, missing, gone. And every time if we miss one document, we can't find one document, then it creates a whole nother deluge of different questions. But I'm really glad that we're getting a thorough audit done. I think we're getting close, hopefully. You probably also got an email from the Illinois Attorney General's office about supplemental of Open Meetings Act and FOIA training, which are not meant to be instead of the online training from the AG's office, but to be deeper dive. So encouraging you to do those as well. In addition to the cell phone collection that we talked about before from the Sheriff's Department that's downstairs, we're also going to be starting to do drug prescription collection as well. So I'm very excited for that as well. You know, if you come in, you'll see the box, and hopefully people will be able to get those drugs away from, you know, potential misuse and from getting them into our water sources.
Gail, sorry, where's that going to be located? Is it going to be right within the front vestibule?
I like it in the, you're now, Julie saying no.
Oh, I think it's a concern with all of our.
So it
pantry
can't be in the
It needs
vestibule.
to be in a.
Well, is it a drop? So here's my issue. Is it going to be like a drop box where you can just put it in and it goes down, or do you have to hand it to a person?
Good question.
My thought being that, you know, very close to this location, you know, you can drop things at the Winnetka Fire Department.
Right.
But you have to get buzzed in and then hand it to a firefighter.
Right.
And, you know, I wonder if that might disincentivize people if they, you know, worry about somebody looking at the label on a prescription. So if we had a drop box, you know, safe and secure, of course, but that might incentivize people to actually utilize it.
That is something we will consider. We'll receive like an agreement from the sheriff's office, and we'll go through what their program requires. But yeah, that's a really good point. Seeing with Julie's about interested having problems with the access as well.
Right.
Is it just medication?
Yeah.
How about needles and things of that?
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about a needle.
Because diabetics have needles, people who take some
Needle
drugs.
disposal. Okay, that's something I'm looking into.
For sheriffs, I mean, be in the business of collecting that stuff, you gotta have
True.
metal boxes. I mean, we don't want to clear employee measures with needles.
I tend to agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, we could have a listing.
Oh, that's true. We could say
Yeah,
this
we
is
already
where the
have
following
one.
places are available. Good point.
And even a medication drop box has to be really secure, because there are nefarious folks that would like to get into there and probably try to score some medicine, and
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
it has to be nailed. It has to be.
Yeah.
You can't
It's like
Yeah.
it's like the, you know,
It'll be
post
secure.
boxes.
Yeah, exactly. For those of you who weren't here when we were talking a little bit about the website redesign, which is in some of the reports, just do take a moment whenever you're looking at the website. Feel free to write down your thoughts. This is the time. The redesign does not involve the content, so it's really on us to make sure the content is good, but the redesign should be about making sure it's user friendly. So every time you have trouble finding something, assume a constituent can't either. Regarding the reports we have to provide to the county under the new decennial committee process that we had reported on last month. Sadly, the community college is not able to help us with that report, despite that being the legislative intent, because they obviously didn't discuss this with the community colleges. So I will continue to try to find a vendor for that. The next supervisors meeting of township officials of Cook County is about this report, and we'll be learning more from the Zion report they did voluntarily a few years ago. So hopefully that will help.
And it is an unfunded mandate, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
So, and I've reached out to the other governments. People seem to be not concerned. So we'll see what happens. Toy is creating kind of like a best practices module. So hopefully we'll be able to use whatever they create, but I want to do it right. So I would like to get a consultant, and I'm still hopeful that we can use the same consultant as the other government. So you might have also seen a recent news release from the Sheriff's Department regarding a roof burglary in in unincorporated New Trier Township. This kind of raised some people's questions about, oh, there's unincorporated New Trier Township. There is insubstantial in the sense that we don't have enough roads to have a roads district. And obviously we don't have any kind of police powers. So that is why the sheriff's department, rather than municipal entities, was the one involved in that. And there are, so do take a look to see, we put up pictures from a ring camera, it looks like, of the perpetrators. So take a look and see if you have any information.
Were these seniors who were duped into letting people into the house or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did, you know, provide some information on the financial, the North Shore Senior Center does work with seniors who are experience financial exploitation. And we did provide that information to the news upon, you know, their request for what resources are available in such situations. So we had already been in discussions with the sheriff's office about doing an outreach event on financial exploitation of seniors. So that'll be on our docket.
Gail, do we know how many households are actually in unincorporated?
I actually don't have that answer. That is a good question.
But if there was like a some kind of crime in progress, fire or crime, wouldn't the police respond to that?
It's mostly that stuff along Hibbert Road there. That's where the unincorporated is.
But if something happened there that was acute, that was emergent, I'm assuming that
They do, they come.
Yeah, they come.
I have a friend that was.
Okay.
And even in non-unincorporated areas, the municipal police departments respond to each other's calls often. As we saw with that case that went down Central and Wilmette on Sheridan. Never a dull moment here in New Trier Township. We had one more request for potential off-cycle donation, off-cycle funding related to the shooting in Highland Park. I had talked to that particular agency as to whether or not they would have met the criteria we discussed in our open meeting, as in it being a social service and an emergency need. That is not something that could be included in their regular application, and they did not apply. So that would have been submitted a week ago. So that everybody knew about it. Oh, and then lastly, today we had a Legal Women Voters in Wilmette meeting here in this office. I have offered to all of our nonprofit partners to be able to use the space, because what's the point of having a lovely meeting area if we don't use it? And that offer stands to all nonpartisan nonprofit entities in our community to use the space. They just need to contact Julie, and we will get it set up as long as we don't have programming ourselves. Any questions on that?
One question on the Grand. So Grand is going to be a repository for donations. Is that awkward in light of the fact that we're winding down seem to be limiting our partnership with them for the pantry? I noticed that Brian says he's no longer using Grand except for the produce bags and emergencies. So
they knew that was where we were headed when they offered to make this to have a permanent receptacle. So okay. I can't imagine. You know, we've had many discussions about, you know, the change in ownership and how it's changed our ability to use them. But we had also been our responsibility is to ensure that we have a fully stocked pantry, and we need to do that by spreading our dollars.
So Grand get a change in ownership.
They did, yes. They're now owned by Sunset.
Sunset Foods. Okay. When did that occur?
Yeah, a year. Yeah.
But that's for both of the Grand stores?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Yep. All right, financial reports. Mr. Howard.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my screen here, and then we'll walk through the 6 months ended August 31. Give me one moment. Again, so we're 50% of the way through our fiscal year. Again, no tax monies really that we've collected from last month. Again, we're waiting on those late property tax bills to go out November, December, and we may not even collect until January. So right now, about 1.2 million collected for property taxes. That's at 38% of the budget. Replacement taxes, though, have been strong. Again, that's the business tax that comes in about every other month from the state. I'm seeing this kind of across our local government entities. We're at 208%, so we've already doubled kind of what's in the budget there at 94,000 collected to date. So we'll continue to monitor that. Again, the replacement tax, you can go out to the state's website to try to see exactly what they're budgeting or forecasting to collect for next year, as some of those Excel schedules have already been placed out there on the website. 47% in terms of interest, we are seeing rates rise. The Fed is probably going to raise rates again, as 8.3 is the mark in terms of the CPI that just came out today. So again, it did not come down as much as we would like. So that's going to be something that we continue to monitor, but that should help us on the interest side of things. Passport fees already at almost 16,000, so that's about double its budget. 1.3 million in total on the revenue side, on 3.3 million budgeted. So we're at about 40% of our total revenue budget to date. On the expenditure side, again, we're looking kind of at that 50% mark in terms of the percent of budget. And again, most of these categories are below that, just a little bit high in terms of other expenses, but our main categories, personnel is at 52. That's kind of our largest expense category. You can see some of these other categories are going to be below that. So nothing too concerning. In fact, we look like we're trending better than budget across all categories. About 1.2 million spent on about 3.7 million budget. So we're at 33% and only at 33 and 38% respectively across both town and the GA funds. Little surplus to date, 72,000. Now that will go away as we kind of spend down our reserves waiting on those property taxes. But we do have plenty in the tank, as they say. We've got about 2 million that we started with, and we're right there at about 2,053,000 at the end of August. So again, good fund balance ratios here, and that's why we keep reserves on hand, of course, is to get us from tax payment to tax payment, as well as any capital needs we might have down the road. In terms of the distribution, property taxes are at 91%, replacement tax 7%, interest 1%, passports 1%. And then on the expenditure side, agency programs make up about 45% of the spend, child care 5%, extra services 5%, the assessor 3%, building and town hall expenses 5%, financial assistance 8%, pantry 5%, personnel 19%, elected officials 2%. So again, trending on the budget, you can see, revenues almost meeting expenditures, and then we're going to be using the reserves the rest of the way until that tax money comes in for the most part. We'll still see some replacement taxes and passport fees, but again, the big piece of our revenue is property taxes. Other than that, I won't go through all of the detail here with you. Again, you can see we're at about 33% in terms of our agency programs across almost all categories there. One other item to point out was that we did have the back to school supplies come in. That's at 94%. So those are the gift cards that go out for that program. But again, nothing here that I saw that was really elevated that didn't have a good explanation for it. And again, 50% across almost all the major payroll categories. So again, small surplus right now to date. And again, that's gonna turn into a deficit as we wait on that tax money. We did see a nice increase in our rates. So again, BMO here at 0.79, almost 80 basis points, and then we're at 1% on some of our bigger accounts. One thing we will be bringing before the board is to close out our payroll account here as we continue to try to consolidate some of these bank accounts. This is something that we no longer need, and we're actually using this 5617 or the town fund main account to actually run the payroll. So that's where the money comes out of. So we can go ahead and close that and transfer it into that town fund if the board so chooses. But again, pretty much mirrors our fund balance, about 2 million across all bank balances. And again, that's through August 31. Other than that, we've got the board list of bills for you to peruse, as well as our bank recs that we've been adding to every board packet for you to take a look at. But that's really kind of concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions on that piece.
And I will note, so you'll see that the before and after school scholarships said that we spent $0. The report from Jean that you have here says we've just now approved those scholarships to go out. So there'll be 13 scholarships going out, and those will be signed in the next few days. So that number will go to 90-something%. We hold back a slight amount. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? In thinking about the consolidation of the bank accounts, I know that we have two GA bank accounts with BMO with different interest rates. And I'm wondering if there has been any thought given to seeing if we can get you know, the either the better interest rate for the 5617, considering that we are talking about closing out the payroll and making that transfer up, or if perhaps we would consider transferring that payroll amount to the higher interest rate GA account at the same bank.
Yeah, I think that we can talk to BMO and see, you know, as these are kind of grandfathered accounts, we'd have to see kind of the setup and structure as to why the two different rates. It's probably just has to do with either collateral needs or kind of what the transactional count is in either of those bank accounts. But I think continued consolidation and talking with the bank is probably what we'll look to do. And again, yeah, we'll always look to try to get the better rate, hopefully to try to make sense, as we really don't need to have as many accounts as we do with BMO. I think we can really continue to consolidate those between town and GA.
And we have a meeting set up with our new BMO banker in October. That's after them. So Sally won't have a report on that yet, but hopefully, yes, our regular bank has left or
And I will always, as normal, interject as to whether or not we should diversify some of our banking. Because at this point, we're almost 100% in one institution. And I just don't think it's prudent.
You know, for convenience, certainly a lot easier to have it in one institution, but I think Stefan makes a compelling point. Month in and month out, maybe we should split this up between BMO and somewhere like Northern or some other bank in the township that might be competitive and perhaps even give us a higher yield, a higher rate of return.
Yeah, there's rates are going up at the banks.
Yeah.
The banks are offering pretty good money these days. Yeah. So I think it's at least still worth an inquiry.
But it has to be a national bank, I think, within the township. And, I've just over the years, personally, in my business, we get good relationships with Northern. I know there's a city bank in Winnetka, it's a small branch. But convenience also plays into the equation. So, Marisha, your input in this would be important.
we do have our Angel Fund account with Northern. That would be an easy transition.
Yeah, we do have an account with them. That's where the food pantry, the Angel Fund money goes to.
Are we happy with that service that Northern provides?
Yeah, I don't really have a close relationship with them the way that I kind of do at BMO Harris, because we just feed money into that account really for pantry donations, Angel Fund donations. We don't really take too much out of that account unless we have special Angel Fund issues that they don't qualify. Yeah, it's not as regular that we use it.
Why don't we, James, discuss potentially rather than consolidating that payroll, moving it to Northern and moving a portion of term fund that way. And we'll discuss that. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great.
I just had one very small question, James. On page 5 of 9, the profit and loss budget versus actual, on the family counseling centers, and I remember this was kind of carried over from a prior discussion, but it looks like there's a little under 1/3 for family counseling and then a little over 1/3 for family services of Winnetka. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, those small percentage differences from off the 33.33. Yes, I do.
You know, what would be the reason for that, if you know?
That I'd have to look into. We'd have to look in to see what kind of the detail is within each account.
Right. Well, we can touch base on that tomorrow. My guess is that it's still that the family counseling and family services Winnetka have been switched, because one's a 14,000, one's a 15,000, 14 out of 42 out of 45, like that. seems to be the discrepancy.
And I think we had the same issue
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah,
So let's make sure
it's closer.
Yeah.
it's closer.
Yeah, I think we were looking at Wilmette and Winnetka both in family services, but we'll look at family counseling now too. That could be the issue.
Exactly. All right, great.
Thank you.
Mark
Yep.
that for us. Do we need a motion to close the IMAT, the $15?
So moved.
So that would be to the $15 accounts, close that out. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Okay, and we will get information on Northern Trail.
Is that considered a financial?
It's not spending money.
Okay.
That's my theory of how it works. I run through it in my head. Maybe we'll have a staff party with it. Okay. Clerk's reports. Nicole has been out ill. She has been working with the staff to ensure that the minutes are updated. So we do have minutes for you to approve.
So I know two things on the last page, on page 4. The first is that under new business B, she wasn't sure if something was discussed. And then at the very bottom, there's no adjournment time. I don't think it's a huge issue. I just.
Oh, there's a next page. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. At what time? Got it.
There was extensive discussion.
Yeah, that's why I was.
Well, we would have separate meetings. Okay, hold on. I would suggest simply saying meeting was adjourned on a vote. I don't think the time is required. We do have it was unanimously voted upon.
It wasn't unanimous. I was,
For adjourn?
oh, no, not for adjourned. I'm talking about Blanco.
Right, okay, so that's one, so just delete that like mini sentence. And then where was I looking before with the other comment?
The under new business B,
Mm-hmm.
not sure this was discussed, and it was actually discussed for like 20 minutes,
Exactly, okay.
including a presentation by their ED, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to give Nicole a little more time with this before we.
I would be in favor of that.
Does that work for you, Rich?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. All right, so then we will table the approval of the August 9th, 2022 minutes. Assessors reports, Jan Churchwell.
Okay, first off, I'm in Peoria. Hello, from Peoria. And it took me much longer to get here than anticipated or through the day. So my report is not in writing yet. That is, it's not in sendable form in writing. I will have it done this week and email it to everybody. It will include the second quarter statistics and then all the appeal information. So a quick rundown, because I got a flash message that my internet connection is unstable in this motel, so who knows, they may disappear at any moment. We were, as you know, we were open roughly between mid-July and mid-August. It was, of my 3 reassessment or triennial appeals, the most hellish ever. It was Len's second, and it was certainly his most hellish ever. He logged in beyond the normal work week over 118 extra hours. We were both working 7 days a week, just sort of whatever we could. I don't log my hours, I just work. It doesn't matter because I'm not on that kind of clock, but there, except for one day when I was traveling most of the day, there was no day that I did not put some hours in on appeals during the time that we were open. Everybody, the problem, as everybody knows, was that there are always increases. We were worried in 2016 about the huge increases. We were worried in 2019 about the huge increases. This year, they were huger and they affected more people. The median figure, whatever it may be, by definition says there will be 50% higher than that figure and 50% lower than that figure. Well, I have in 2016 and 2019, you might get a handful of people who had 70 or 80%. That's that we might get. Lawyers might have gotten more, but we would see a handful of people who had received maybe a 70% increase, an 80% increase, maybe even 100% increase. Needless to say, we have never seen a 70% decrease, let alone 100% decrease, unless it was a veteran who qualified for getting off his property taxes altogether, which is a different issue. But the problem with stating that 50% people got reductions, they got tiny reductions. And since the COVID adjustment was going away anyway, anybody who didn't get at least an 8% increase, roughly, got a reduction, basically. And they're not counted as reductions, which is interesting because they're counted. They may have gotten a 2% raise, but if 8% of that was coming to them anyway, they actually netted 6% lower. But the number of people who got 100% or more increases was just unprecedented. And I'm assuming that we only saw the tip of the iceberg because, of course, we only hear from the unhappy people. But we were, I think our statistics are going to come in pretty much the same as they have in 2016 and 2019 at somewhere between 1,000 and 1,100 residents dealt with. Len said he was actually so busy that he quit logging calls at one point because he was just busy returning phone calls and sending comps, and just didn't have the energy, basically was too tired at the end of a 12-hour day to take the extra time to log in the calls he'd returned. So I'm going to see if we can recover some of them and get an accurate figure. In the past, again, in the last 2 tries, we've been very busy to begin with. There's always been this, big rush of miserable people clamoring for help right away. And then it slacks off and we catch a break and we get caught up, and then we can finish up without any trouble. There was no break this year. They were there, they were on the phone, they were in the office, they were on email 7 days a week. And there was no rest for us to try and help everybody who wanted help. And that's our job. We finished up at 10 o'clock on August 19th, and I was terribly pleased that it wasn't 11:59. So that was great. That was good news. The tax bills, we have no information on them yet. As James said, they're late. They're just going to be late. Again, the main takeaway for all the residents is that just as this year, the tax bills are very late, and we're going to see the effects in the township, and other places will too, of not getting payments that they would normally receive earlier. But the tax bills can't come out until the Board of Review has finished its work for that tax cycle. That tax cycle began at the beginning of calendar year 2021. And it is taking them nearly 2 years to get through because of the assessors' software programs and whatever other errors they may have, not allowing them to do their work on time. I don't know how many of you had this happen to you, but we had lots of calls at the beginning from people who went in to take a look on, after their assessments arrived, they wanted to look at comps for themselves just to see what they could find. And they were all very surprised to find out that they lived in a 2 to 6 flat. Most of your township lived in 2 to 6 flats. So did one of the other townships. Another township was told on the back of all their notices that nobody had received any exemptions since 2013. This prompted an awful lot of phone calls, as you can imagine. So life in the assessor's office goes on, and of course they don't tell us any of this. We don't know whether they've fixed this 2 to 6 flat issue. They have never told us that they've dealt with it at all. We have no idea. As far as I know, other townships all live in 2 to 6 flats. Fortunately, our software was not affected by that, so we got real comps that we could give people. And I'm sure the other whatever other software, other firms and so forth were using, they could do that too. But this kind of thing, I mean, it just throws people for a complete loop. They don't know what to make of it. How can I find comps? I don't live in a 6 flat. I can barely manage what I've got. I think one person said, if I have a 2 to 6 flat, I'm starting to rent out rooms immediately. Say the kids are just going to have to bunk up because we got to get these bodies in here and start collecting rent. So the bills that will be based on this reassessment, this reassessment triennial period, they cannot be issued next year until the Board of Review is done with all the appeals for all of Cook County for all of calendar year 2022, which will run possibly as late as again next year as they did this year. So people don't have to worry yet about when they're going to have to pay a hit if they're going to end up with a hit. And everybody does get their second, by law, chance to appeal to the Board of Review. Our personal feeling is that if the assessor planned to give anything in the way of a decent reduction to anybody, he wouldn't have raised things so badly to begin with. So I don't think we're going to see very many people getting much relief unless there was an error that was so egregious that even the assessor can't ignore it. I think it's going to depend on the Board of Review, and with 2 new Board of Review commissioners coming in November, that's going to be up in the air as well. We can't. I wouldn't even predict where we're going to go, where we're going to end up, where people are going to end up this year. And then the last thing, of course, is to remember that no matter when the second tax bills come out this year, whether they are out payable in calendar 2022 or not until calendar 2023, the first tax bills for next year will come out at the end of January on time, because that's working capital based on the total of this year, and that will be a known figure. So the treasurer does not have to wait to get that working capital into the works. It's the second tax bills that have all the information on them and everything that are the ones that cannot come out until the Board of Review has finished its work, because it isn't until then that the equalizer can be established or that rates can be established, and the bills can't be issued or compiled until all of that material is in. So that'll do for now, and I'll write that all up and you'll see it later. Okay.
Yeah.
I noted that there was a shout out to your department, and congratulations on that. And
thank you.
I know they're working very hard.
Thank you very much. We did.
It was late in the day today, but all of the board members received an email from Len congratulating you and telling us about the Herculean efforts that you personally have made during this period. So it is absolutely not gone unacknowledged, and we are so appreciative of your efforts, as well as Len, of course, too. I
mean, it is, it's 1 month every 3 years is marginally bearable, but it is, I mean, it is, if the 2 of us could handle more people, I'm not sure we could, but I would be happy to, because there are more people that need help. I mean, that's what we want to do, is get every resident who needs assistance to make sure they get it. we can't guarantee success, but we can guarantee the effort. And that's what we try to do. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. I was going to ask that Len's email be included in the record as a public comment. He is a resident. Are there any additional public comments?
What email?
I'll read it into the record if you like. Is that agreeable? Sure. Okay. Dear Township officers and trustees, I cannot make the meeting tonight to tell you in person what a Herculean effort Jan made to see all of our residents have an opportunity to contest their 2022 reassessment. As homeowners and officials in the township, I'm sure that you know that the county assessor increased the 2022 assessed values for most of residential property by 30 to 100%. As a result of this unprecedented increase, we were inundated with requests for assistance. The telephone rang constantly, the emails poured in, and there was a constant stream of residents climbing the stairs and riding the elevator to our second floor. The interactions with our residents monopolized the 9 to 5 workday. As a result, most of our work finding evidence and arguments to support appeals and filing appeals was done in the evening. On many a night in the appeal window of July 19th to August 19th, I was receiving emails from Jan as she forwarded lists of comps to residents, and as she corresponded with them regarding the misdescriptions made by the assessor regarding their property, and as she reassured them that their real estate taxes were not going to double. As the nights wore on, I received many emails from Jan well after midnight, listing residents who needed assistance and sharing sales data and other facts helpful in crafting appeals. This intense level of work only increased as the August 19th deadline approached, as our residents shared with their neighbors what wonderful help Jan had given them, thus leading more residents to seek assistance. In fact, on the evening of August 19th, we finally filed the last appeal at 10 o'clock p.m. I just wanted you to know that without the countless hours spent by Jan in getting the appeals filed and in delivering exceptional service, many of our residents would have missed their opportunity to have their challenge to this financially changing assessment heard. Regards, Leonard F. Shiplet.
Wow, he did not tell me that. No, he didn't. And I would have to say, and I'm more than happy to say this, on the record. I wish I could shout it from the rooftops. If he can say that, all I can say is back to him times 10, because it's true. As I said, we don't have an accurate count yet, and may not get one of the residents that we worked with for this appeal because of the overwhelming number of calls and emails coming in. But the previous, well, in 2019, when Len was here, we filed about 1,100. We worked with about 1,100 residents. He worked with 1,000 of them. I worked with about 100. Now this year, this time was much more balanced. I know I worked with somewhere around 400 people, and he worked probably with twice that many. So the effort that goes into it is much heavier on the deputy assessor side, because he was the one who was in the office all the time. I was at home with the laptop a lot of the time, working from there. So his effort far outshines mine, quite frankly.
We appreciate both of your work, and hope that you get a little rest. Now that people are just asking you questions about their exemptions and about the treasurer's office and all the good fun. So
we hope you're at a bridge tournament. Jan, are you at a bridge tournament?
No, I'm at a continuing ed course.
I knew it when she said Peoria. I was like, yep, that's continuing. Thank you, Jan.
It's probably better for any partner I'd be playing with that I'm not at a bridge tournament, to tell you the truth. So. But thank you, Elliot. I wish I were too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
All right. We are now in line for a new committee member application. We've been presented with the application of Bridget Lewis of Winnetka. Is there any discussion?
would like to know what the Winnetka Garden is.
See, it's like a lollipop field, but garden. No. Our resident Winnetka.
So it's gone, it's had a few different names over time, but the Winnetka Garden Club or Winnetka Garden Guild has been in existence for a very long time. They do a number of amazing projects around Winnetka. The one that you might be most familiar with is right outside of Dwyer Park. They take care of the pollinator garden that's immediately adjacent. That's just gorgeous when it's in full bloom in the summertime. So, but they're fantastic, and it's a really very, very nice community within a community.
Cool. Move to approve the nomination of
Ridiculous.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being none, it's unanimous. Bridget Lewis will be, is being appointed to the Life Stages Committee. Yes. Committee liaison reports. We will start with mental health.
So we had our first committee meeting last night, Monday, September 12th. We have a new chair and a number of new members. You know, we did the introductions, the discussion of the process, the distribution of the funding proposal packets, and set the schedule for 2 October meetings to review the funding proposals and for the 3 funding hearings to take place in November. We have not yet scheduled our December decision meeting, but that is coming next. And so on the record, I'd just like to thank in advance all the members of the committee for what I know will be a lot of hard work this year.
Absolutely, thank you. Life Stages, and yeah.
Yes, so we have not had our meeting yet. That will take place at the end of September. And the only kind of seed that I wanted to plant, kind of throw out this idea for any trustees that do have an interest or do have capacity, is when it comes time for the youth organizations to give their presentations. If any other trustees would like to come and listen to those presentations, just because I know there has been some controversy, you know, in the past about whether or not to fund these specific organizations. So I just feel like the more knowledge that everyone has, the better. So just wanted to
let us know when those funding meetings are going to be once they're set.
Yes,
I would be interested in that.
Great.
For what it's worth, I'd be interested if you want to accompany me or if any committee members want to accompany, I would have no problem making a site visit to each one of those youth agencies between now and the time of funding. I'm available to do that, especially with that guy. I'd like to see what's going on. And we do get tidbits of information from some of our youth offenders through the peer jury program that are serving there. And I'm just not sure there's a lot of activity.
right.
And there's so much change underway. But would you express to the committee that I, Trustee Robbins, would like to make a site visit to each of those 3 agencies with a committee member or without, just to see what's going on and ask some questions?
But certainly invite the liaison from the committee.
Yes, yes.
Do we want to have any kind of preliminary discussion? Because we, at the end of last year, we said that the youth agencies were something that we need to put on the agenda, not specifically, but in general, to kind of see where we're at with it. So what I don't want to have happen is to get into the whole funding cycle and the whole presentation cycle and then have to backtrack for ourselves. So I'm just wondering, and I don't know if we want to do a special meeting for that purpose or what maybe, you know, maybe the next board meeting we put it on the agenda, but it's a festering issue which we have wanted to address, which we started to last year. But I think it may be important to have conversations about it at some level before we get into the whole funding cycle.
Yes.
So do you don't feel that the the funding
The committee itself.
the guidelines that we passed, you don't feel that's sufficient to guide that discussion?
No, I don't, Gail.
Okay.
Those are more general in nature. And I think that the youth organizations have been a hot spot for a number of years now. And it's getting worse instead of better from my perspective, given the number of years I've been on the township. So that's why I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I at least want to bring the topic to the table to see what other people's feelings are. I mean, it's great to do a site visit, you know, and I appreciate that. But are we gonna in any way change our response to the youth organizations? Or are we going to reorganize the youth organizations in some way? That's what I'm really trying to get to.
So why don't we do this? Let's set up a committee of the whole on the youth organization. And I'd like to invite the representatives of the school district and the library district.
Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind.
Just by way of history, it was only about 8-9 months ago that we kind of trumped the recommendations of our committees on at least 2 of the 3 youth organizations, if not all 3 of them, and extended a little bit more of a lifeline than the committees were preparing to extend. And I want to make sure that we are more aligned with our committees and we are more deferential to what they have to say. And part of the way I think we get there is by us immersing ourselves, you know, and actually maybe paying a little special attention to those 3 youth agencies. And, I mean, I think we also made clear in our letters that accompanied the awards was that, you know, we are going out on a limb here and giving you a lifeline, but we expect A, B, C, and D more or less, or else.
Yeah.
I think that's how we left off with them. So.
And it was certainly received at the time. I think what you saw in Brian's report is that with changes in leadership, it might not have gotten translated. So that's definitely a concern. So yeah, we'll set up a committee of the whole devoted to that. But we'll have to, you know, probably set it out from at least a month out so we can get as many of these representatives there that need to be there for state otherwise.
And you're suggesting that the chair of the committee be present at that, or?
Yeah, that does make, yeah.
I like the idea of including the school district representatives and the library district representatives. I know from, you know, being on the library board in Winnetka, Northfield Public Library District that, you know, it's something that we are thinking an awful lot about, you know, how does one attract, you know, the tween and teen, you know, groups. And so I think that, you know, there's no reason to, you know, hide, you know, any ball here, that if there are things that we can share with one another and, you know, brainstorming to be done. And I think that it's a great idea to do it together and figure out how we can capture this really important group of residents and citizens.
Absolutely. Okay. Disability support funding and oversight.
Our meeting is a week from Thursday.
Right.
And I had a question. Was Steve Anderson at the your meeting?
I was actually not at the meeting last night, so I do not know if he was present.
Is he like tailing Brian at this point?
Yeah, and he was actually on the Zoom earlier. I don't know if he's still there.
It looks like he just dropped off. But we have his hours shifted those nights. So yes, he is supposed to be there at all those meetings.
Okay,
yeah.
I just wondered. I was forward to meeting the our meeting.
Absolutely.
And actually, I was going to see if maybe for the next board meeting, if we could invite Steve if he has the time capacity to come to the meeting. So I personally have not met him. I think it'd be great if we could meet him and he could also see, you know, in person what the board meetings look like. Yeah. That's great.
Sure. Your jury, Elliot, was my reporting.
Yeah, Supervisor Eisenberg pointed out, we did meet with the chief of police of the village of Format, as well as the corporation council. And we voiced our concerns that we had been getting 6, 8, 10 cases a year, you know, several years back. And then the spigot has kind of gone cold over the last few years, especially since the pandemic is lifting a little bit. And both guys were really genuine. They were really complimentary of the program. I don't think the Corporation Council of the Village is familiar with the peer jury program as the chief of police, Officer Murphy is. And we're going to consider having the supervisor, the corporation counsel was very involved in their program, their administrative program. We're going to consider having him attend some of our peer jury sessions, or at least one session when we have some new cases, so he gets a better feel for what we do. He believes very strongly that the way they conduct their administrative program is very beneficial. He has very low recidivism rates. He convinced me, at least for the time being, that it's not a question of monetizing the situation. I had thought that might be a real concern that we were competing with. Will Met's desire to monetize youth offenses? And I left the meeting convinced that was not an issue. Indeed, that is not the case. The kids are much better behaved, than they were. Their youth offenses are down. There could be an issue where Will Met at the junior high level, for example, they do have some issues, but they're trying to handle those internally. They don't get the police involved. But Gail, I think you might share my view that they seem really intent on sending us cases. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out exactly what cases are more appropriate for peer jury than their administrative process. And there is a niche where I think we can really do better than they can do. And then there's a group of cases like alcohol offenses on the beach, for example, which predominate their program, which they can handle more efficiently and more appropriately than we can. So I thought it was a very amicable meeting. We were together for about an hour. And then at Gail's suggestion, they got a nice tour of the food pantry. But both guys were here in good faith. And I think they really care about us and they want to send us cases. But the proof will be in what happens. So we're going to keep them on a tight leash, and we're going to do everything we can to try to, facilitate getting some cases from the village of Wilmette, which is obviously, in terms of population, it's more than half the township. So, if for some reason we can't get cases from them, that jeopardizes the productivity of our program.
Yeah, so we're creating that list. Yeah, I thought it was very productive. Thank you. Acknowledgement of the staff reports. We have received reports from our Township Administrator, Community Services Administrator, General Assistance Administrator, Outreach and Communications Director, and Community Partnerships Coordinator. Is there anything that anyone would like to take out of those staff reports for discussion?
There are two items that I wanted to just mention. The first is in Larisha's administrative report. I just wanted to mention specifically that I have had dealings with HTML Global in the last week, and I found them incredibly responsive and very kind in working with somebody for whom technology is not a first language. So I really appreciate Larisha's help with that, but also want to shout out to this vendor. And then also in Brian's report, I wanted to mention as it pertains to the food pantry, there is a big drive coming up that was not mentioned, but it's later, it's actually starting very, very shortly. I think it's the Thursday for 2 weeks. Greeley Elementary School in Winnetka has a K-4 school-wide 2-week-long food pantry huge drive. And they do it as a class against class, grade against grade showdown about who can bring the most of particular things, and each grade has a different item or type of item for each of the 2 weeks. So for instance, the first graders are supposed to bring soups or chili in the first week, and then in the second week zip top style bags. I think that this is it's a great thing, and I'm personally looking forward to going to town on the second graders. So I just wanted to call that out as one that I know is coming up, and we should be looking forward to that.
We should get that into all our elementary school.
I'm telling you, it works.
SARS school, I think you meant Sears.
Sears, I think you meant Sears.
So there was a food drive.
Yeah, there's Sears, yeah. But yeah, this is the one I'm thinking of is really in Winnetka. So
wonderful. So I will take something out of the reports. Just a reminder, take a look at your Fall Fest Community Wellness Fair flyer that we've been working very hard on. And I could not be more excited for it. And I hope you will all attend and tell all of your friends, because this is our big first time doing this in memory, which for all we know what happened. But on the 22nd at the North Shore Senior Center, and we will have flu and COVID shots, which is very exciting. And I will be swabbing people for the gift of life to get onto the bone marrow registry. We're going to have fitness demos, a fire truck. So we got something for everybody. And partnerships with our own agencies as well as governments. But it's all supposed to be active and interactive. So it's going to be really cool. So please encourage everyone to come. And the Our Place of New Trier walk is coming up on October 2nd. So I hope you'll join me for that. Because this is really a paradigm township agency came out of this seed funding protocol. No, that was Our Place. Our place has really been, performing well and been, right there within our mission the whole time. So that's going to be a big fundraiser as well. If you want to make a donation,
what's the date of that again?
October 2nd at the beach. And I also wanted to give a shout out also to the Gonco Family Services who've been having many of the drop-in center hours here. So what we were funding was occurring. We were able to have some of them here, which allowed us, people to come into the building, see what's available. And to follow up on that funding request, the village did meet them and also provided funding for the Glencoe resident portion as well. So I know that was a question you had, what other entities were going to fund them as well.
And at what level too?
The full, I think we said 35. Yeah. And there was an article in the record or the Chicago Tribune about it. Both. Yeah. I think. Yes. Regarding that both entities provided the funding so that it could be a free service.
Two Glencoe entities and the township.
Well, we were funding the Glencoe Family Services, and so was the village.
I think there was one other Glencoe municipal entity other than the village that was also being requested, wasn't there?
Not to my recollection.
No.
But yeah.
Requesting funding or who did fund?
Who was being requested? She said that they had.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I remember her mentioning a third. I'll send you the article. I'll dig it up.
And of course, we have to just give a shout out to the Jubilee Jog Memorial Day event because that was an incredible fundraiser for the pantry, an $11,000 donation from our friends at St. Joseph Francis.
Saint Joseph and Francis Xavier.
Got it.
Two different guys.
Right, and I know they combined.
Oh, they combined.
They combined a couple of years. Yeah. Okay. So thank you to all those who are listening in the future that for that amazing donation. As Brian's report that we continue to see even go up from our record in July for usage because you can choose and people are liking the dairy and they're liking the bread and it's great. So, but it is meaning that we are stretching that dollar as much as possible.
Are the needs up to date on the website at the moment or?
Should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian. Awesome. Thank you.
I think we should point out that we've got some wonderful adults, senior volunteers that are assisting with the process. And I happened to meet a couple of them when I was here for the meeting, the police superior jury meeting. And these guys were just wonderful volunteers, mature seniors that are
our pantry volunteers.
Yes. Awesome. Which makes things a little bit easier for our Larisha. That's a good development, right?
Yeah, the only thing that they cannot do is obviously check people in, but they do facilitate and ask people if they need help. So it has been helpful, and Brian gives them different tasks in the pantry, make sure that things are stocked in the lobby. So it's been going well so far.
Awesome.
All right. We don't have any continuing business today. New business. Kate, you have a resolution?
So kind of A and B go hand in hand here. So to back up and kind of remind us what we're doing here. at our July 12th meeting, at the end of the meeting, Elliot brought up the idea of doing some kind of proclamation or resolution or statement on the part of the board, regarding the horrific shooting at Highland Park, the 4th of July parade. I looked into it, and Elliot and I had discussions regarding it. And so, really what we came up with is there's a lot of gun legislation that is working its way through the system. And in an effort to make a statement in support of some incredibly heroic efforts and in support of people who are in recovery, but to not get in the way of or put ourselves in the space of dealing with the legislative process. I am proposing that we would express our support for Senate, this is the United States Senate Resolution 711, which was introduced by Senators Durbin and Duckworth on July 14th and passed on that same day by unanimous consent, as well as the House Resolution 1229, which was introduced by Schneider and Scott on that same day, on the 14th of July. It was referred to the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, also on that same day. I believe that in your packets for this evening's meeting, the text of those two resolutions was provided. They are, I think that they're incredibly well written. They are meant to honor and recognize the efforts of the people that ran into the fire, and but also to express the condolences for the people that were lost tragically. So, I would propose and ask for your support in showing our support for these, the Senate Resolution 711 and House Resolution 1229. If anybody has any questions or any thoughts, I'm absolutely open to it.
Were they already passed?
So the Senate resolution was passed by unanimous consent on the same day. The House resolution was referred to the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. As of this afternoon, I have not seen anything further on the tracker. But that is where it is right now. It's within committee, but it was introduced, almost at the exact same time as the Senate resolution on the same day.
My thought on it, when I looked at it, I immediately said, we want to stay out of politics.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you noted. My only question is it too late to back something that's already been passed? That's why I asked if it's been passed. So yeah, that's the only reason I made it ask my question.
Sure. And my thinking on it is not to say that this doesn't do anything, but I think that there was a sentiment of wanting to show in some kind of formal way our support, whether or not it influences, the federal government. And I think that, I looked very carefully at the wording of these two resolutions to ensure that it is, they are written in a nonpartisan way, and that they are not proposing or purporting to push a particular agenda, especially as it relates to legislative efforts, which are starting to be taken back up in a lot of communities, including our own. And so I know that we want to stay away from that, but show a lot of love and support for our neighbors to the north. And so that's really where I was coming at. And I think that Elliot and I were in line with this.
Kate, you said it out eloquently. I mean, when you look at the resolutions carefully, they are as nonpartisan and as apolitical as resolutions can possibly be. And I just think it's important that we, as the representative of our constituents in the township, let our residents, that the residents to the north of us, that we really, we have our antennas up. We're involved. We're doing as much as we can. We feel strongly that these resolutions, set forth our views on the tragic loss, and we want to do everything we can to support the victims of this horrible event. So I think it's sending a message to our residents that we're, I think, on the right side of this in terms of supporting the victims. And again, I don't think that these are heavily partisan or political resolutions. So I feel strongly along the lines that Kate does, that this is a good message to send, and a message that will be supported by the vast majority of our constituents.
I totally agree with that, Elliot. My only question was too little, too late. We get, unfortunately, we get into that sometimes.
I know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm questioning.
We're just, I mean, we're not expecting our we're not expecting our statement to carry any weight or to sway anything in Washington, but we're voicing our support, for the benefit of the members of our community who feel strongly about it, and our neighbors to the north and the adjoining township.
And for what it's worth, I know that a number of the villages that come under our umbrella are taking, gun legislation up themselves right now. For instance, I know that Winnetka has a meeting on the 20th of this month, just next week, to address the issue of potential gun legislation within the village. And so I know that our purview is a little bit different in terms of what is not only appropriate, but also what actually has any teeth, on the gun issue. And so, I think that this is not the best that we can do, but I think that this is the most appropriate thing that we could do probably at this point.
So I will reiterate my view on proclamations and on non-binding resolutions, that I just don't see a limiting principle, and we want to bring to the board every legislation that I think is important in that. So that's always my concern. And then you get one, and now you suspended somebody. It's a little different from the proclamation request. As far as supporting pending legislation, my normal thought on that would be obviously, limited scope government. What are we permitted to do? This obviously does not actually do. So that, maybe less of a concern, but I just not seeing any, I'm not aware of any part of the township code that would allow us to do something like that. We have expressed our condolences. We have not done it in a formal way, but we certainly did right after the shooting at a formal board meeting. And obviously through our actions in funding the trauma care, and in updating our crisis response website to ensure to provide information on red flags and on safe storage. So I don't think we've done nothing. We've done everything that I can think of within our purview. So that those are my concerns. Obviously, I support the legislation. I do appreciate that this is literal. The ones that haven't passed yet, the House resolution, looks like it's the entire Illinois delegation. So Republican and Democrats as sponsors. So there are rarely times when we have Mary Miller working with Bobby Rush.
So Gail, is your concern that it's not our role to support legislation?
It is, because I would want to do a lot of things.
I agree. So
yeah,
that's why I was having the conversation.
Yeah,
I felt similar.
but personally, I completely agree.
I don't think this is that much different than like crafting our own welcoming resolution, which we did. I think this is akin to that. This is very apolitical. This is a horrific event that hit very close to home. We're spending a lot of money to support some agencies that are right down in the thick of it. I don't think this is that different than some things we've done in the past. I don't know, that's my feeling about
So
it.
the welcoming resolution, I will say, is really, it has lovely whereas clauses. It's really about record keeping, right? We won't ask for citizenship data. It's not necessary, right?
Well, it went beyond that. It talked about, you know, we're gonna welcome all people with all walks of life and all genders and all
Absolutely.
creeds and so on. I mean, it was a statement of it was a policy position. We took a position, a policy position in crafting that welcoming resolution, and then the content that we adopted for the resolution. I don't think this is much far afield from that now.
I think there's a big distinction, Elliot. I think that to draft our own resolution is one thing. To support a pending piece of legislation in the government, I think it's a different animal. I'm not saying right or wrong. I really think they're completely different animals.
But when you look at the content of what it is that we drafted and what it is,
Oh, no, I agree with that. But I don't think it's the township's role to support legislation one way or the other. Period. So that's just my position on it.
And so practically speaking, what does this look like? If we vote yes, are we issuing a statement? Is that being put on our website? What, in reality, what does this look like?
In reality, I think it's our raising our voices and saying in a united voice that what happened was wrong, that we are supporting our neighbors, that we are honoring those who died and those who will have visible and invisible scars forever. We are recognizing the heroic efforts of our first responders in not only Highland Park, but in neighboring towns, including almost all of those in the township.
I mean, I'm in 100% agreement with everything that is in these two pieces. I'm just wondering if, you know, if we pass something today, is that just, what does that look like? Do we issue a statement? Like, how do you?
I don't envision it as something that we put on a website. I envision it as something that goes on our record in the minutes.
Yeah.
That is, you know, part of, you know, our you know, video of whoever is still there, and just our bearing witness to this moment in history and in this area.
Does it make sense for us to create our own resolution?
You know what? I thought about that, but frankly,
You couldn't say it better. I agree with that.
plagiarize is problematic in my words, and I think it was done pretty freaking well over here. So I want to give credit where it has been already written by other people with better wordsmithing than me. And research skills for that matter. So I, you know, when I was talking, you know, I was communicating with Elliot about this. I said, you know, listen, I've tried a number of different ways. I've gone through draft after draft, you know, a la, you know, Snoopy balling things up and throwing them over his shoulder. But, you know, what I kept coming to is they've already done this. You know, this is what I would write if I, you know, were a better writer. And so it's not to be political, it's to, you know, recognize when things are well said and well written already.
I don't think it's plagiarism. You know, I think it's adapting the language other than the House Representatives portion.
I would have no problem with putting our support of these two resolutions on our website, and I'd have no problem with sending a nice letter to the mayor of Highland Park expressing what it is that we did here at the fact we vote favor. There's nothing to hide about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to hide. This is a township, a unit of local government, taking a stand, kind of an apolitical stand, honoring heroes, expressing our sympathy for the fallen. You know, and again, we've had unprecedented situation after unprecedented situation. We had the pandemic, we had a fire, and now we got this horrific mass killing in Highland Park. I mean, I don't want to bury my head in the sand. The township can, I think, from time to time, take a forward position.
I don't see this as a forward position. I see this.
We're supporting two resolutions. That's what I would like to do. But again, I mean, we could frame it, we could make a motion, and we could vote on it, and we could bring us to rest where we're at.
So where I'm at is I would not support the township as a township entity supporting pending legislation. I don't think there's one in principle. What I would support is this resolution as a resolution of the board, obviously with the exception of resolved by the House of Representatives instead with New Trier Township.
So that would be Senate Resolution 711, considering that that was already passed. It's not pending anymore.
Right.
Is that your understanding?
So we need to concur in the language of Senate Resolution 711.
And what is Gail, you're concerned that House Resolution 1229 is still, for whatever reason, still pending.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out why this is still pending.
Because it's referred to a House committee, and we know that things often die in committee.
And we're going to condemn the horrific act. We're going to honor the memory. We're going to offer condolences. We're going to articulate the hope that all those injured do well. We're going to honor the bravest actions, honor the bravery, express the admiration. I don't know why it's still pending.
The fact that it is though.
Yeah.
Says something.
So one thing we could do maybe is, do we have any sense that this might be addressed, this House resolution might be passed soon?
I looked today, and it's essentially as if, yeah, essentially it's as if the wheel is literally still spinning on the screen. It's just,
and the
you know,
longer you
tracking
delay it,
towards
the less effective it is.
Well, and when you say effective, I don't think we're gonna change anybody's.
No,
I mean, this is a yelp kind of.
it's no, I guess effective isn't the right word. The longer it takes to get to it, it doesn't look good on us.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
Well, in the sense that we were deferential and waited until the second one passed before we stuck our, put our. I mean,
And I'll reiterate that I believe that we have expressed our condolences.
Okay, so
let's say somebody with township says, what is the township, what is the township's position? What has the township said?
Yeah.
What has the township done with regard to these horrific events? Not that the.
Well, then why, I mean, I feel we have an answer. I mean, this isn't an action to me.
We gave $35,000 to
Right.
Lincoln.
That's right, that's right. And that should-
when they ask for it.
Upon our telling them to act.
And I want to point out that I was hesitant because I wanted to get the input of the committee on it.
I wish I could, sorry.
The crisis page, we
Right, the crisis page and the
put out
funding,
there a whole list of
right.
crisis response.
We've included and the how-to on how to get an order of protection for firearms.
So maybe we modify our discussion and just focus on the Senate resolution, which is already passed. And we support the sentiment that was passed by the Senate, something along those lines.
So to move the ball forward, I would move to concur with the language of Senate Resolution 711.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. It is unanimous. So we have concurred with the language of Senate Resolution 711.
Thank you.
That was a Solomon type resolution.
All right. Lastly, on our new business. So I'm sure you've all been looking at our old approval of claims. And you're like, oh, it says that pursuant to a resolution passed in 1999, we are thereby submitting these documents for approval.
Can't find that resolution, can you?
No.
Yeah.
So I had asked, obviously, our previous administrator to find it. I was not provided a copy. It very likely is somewhere. She directed me to clerk's archives. We don't have any clerks who were here in 1999. We have not been able to find it. It is likely here. The point of such a resolution under the statute essentially is to provide permission to the board to verify rather than approve and audit the bills. So if we had done it without a resolution, we have to literally, before any bill goes, any of our checks go out, this board needs to approve those checks.
Oh, geez.
Right. So the resolution must say that we've been able to do it the way we've been doing it for the last decade. We don't have a copy. That makes me uncomfortable. So I figured I would just get a new copy and present it to you all. It is likely exactly the same thing that that we already have, but we can put it on our website so that I can feel less anxious.
Yeah.
So what we had been doing for all these years is we had been ratifying instead of approving.
Yeah.
Yes. And
you know, we had conversation at some of them where like, oh, shouldn't it be before? Okay, this resolution must have said that we can be. So,
I was glad to see it, because I don't like signing documents in blank.
there you go.
I'm very much in favor of it.
Thank you for cleaning this up.
Yes, so hopefully, and I did borrow a lot of the language. I added a few things. I don't think we have to include wages under here because it's expressly accepted from the statute from the audit purposes. That's clearly if it's wages under the Illinois Wage Payment Act, if you don't have to audit, it would be verified. But we included it here just for completeness.
Sure.
Yeah. So does anyone have any questions or edits? Seeing none, I will now entertain a resolution.
Motion.
Yep, a motion to pass the resolution authorizing payment of certain bills prior to examination and audit by the township board.
So moved.
second,
All of those, oh, this one we will do as a, no, this is roll call vote. Okay, great. Madam, no, we were roll call votes. So
Where do you put the, when do you put the number
for the resolution number,
in? Yeah.
I'd find out what the most recent resolution was. My guess is it was the
That we can find.
the ordinance,
Okay,
right?
that's fine, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Supervisor Spencer Eisenberg.
Yes.
Trustee Cassell McNally.
Yes.
Trustee Robin.
yes,
Trustee Rubin.
Yes.
Trustee Moser.
Yes.
Okay. 5, 0 nay, 0 absent. Yeah. 5, 1 approved. 9, 13, 22. Let's go here. I'll have you at top. This is my signature.
So given that, do we still complete the claims?
Yes, we're testing. Deputy clerk, yeah.
So moving forward, do you still want these claim sheets on the,
Yes,
in the board packet?
but it's verification, which is what we really were doing the whole time. So instead of approving a claim. Yeah.
So we'll do the ordinance number tomorrow.
Yep. Okay. And then we'll post it through our website. And for you all appreciated our new resolution section of the website.
Mm-hmm.
With the whole intent of not losing the resolution. So,
So in future, will the approval of claims now be called verification of claims?
yeah,
Okay.
thank you. And you can keep that back copy. All right, with that in mind, we will move on to our first official verification under the new resolution.
Do you have a sheet, or should I use the sheets I got, or what do you want to do?
I'll write this up.
Please.
Okay, so both the town fund and the payroll. We need a pen. Okay, no.
Thank you. No,
Is this really going to be?
No, that might just be a typo.
Okay, we also choose fix the the date on it.
Documents for, yes, it's back 1 month.
Okay. So in our packets, for the record, is the list of the claims made in the past month.
We'll start off April until August.
Okay.
And it's not under payroll.
sorry, so at the top of all of these, it's now gonna be verification
Yeah,
of
we got
claims,
it.
not approval, okay.
Yep.
And then on the payroll one, it says April, and it should be August.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you, Danielle.
And pending that everybody signs as necessary, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
When's the next meeting?
Yeah, I'm about to grab it.